She said my name like it belonged to someone worth noticing. Jacob. One word in the dim hallway, warm as the light spilling from her doorway. My keys slipped in my fingers. I'd climbed those stairs 100 times, and no one had ever stopped me with something that simple. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. She didn't look past me. She looked at me, and it felt like a switch flipped somewhere deep in my chest. I'm 28. I rent the downstairs unit of a duplex on Cedar Ridge. I work an office job, pay my bills, keep my head down. The world likes men like me because we don't make noise. The problem is, the world forgets we exist. It wasn't dramatic loneliness. It was invisibility. Cashiers called me buddy. Coworkers waved and moved on. Neighbors nodded, eyes sliding over my face to whatever mattered more. I learned to carry my groceries with my shoulders rounded, as if apologizing for taking up space. Then she moved in upstairs. Her name was Nora, 33. 2 suitcases, a stack of boxes, and that careful way of standing, like she expected the floor to shift under her. The first night I heard furniture scraping, then a heavy thud, then a muffled curse that made me smile into my pillow. A week later the rain came hard and sudden. I got home late with takeout, an umbrella that had given up, and a porch light that flickered again. I muttered about the landlord, pushed the front door, and the bulb blinked out for good, swallowing the steps in black. I took one step, and my foot slid. My knee hit wood. The bag tore. Fries scattered. I sat there, wet and stupid, staring at the dark like it had won. The upstairs door opened. Warm light poured out, carrying the clean scent of soap and something citrusy. Nora stepped onto her landing in a loose sweater and jeans, hair pulled back messy, bare feet on cold boards like she didn't care about the storm. She looked down at me, and I expected the usual, an awkward laugh, a quick "you okay," said to the air, then retreat. Instead she came down fast, quiet as a cat. She crouched beside me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine. Her hand hovered, then settled on my forearm, steady, gentle, real. "Hey," she said, voice low, not pitying. "Did you hurt yourself?" "I'm fine," I lied. I tried to stand and winced. Her fingers tightened, not letting me pretend. "Sit." One word, firm. She clicked the dead switch, sighed, and pulled out her phone. The screen glow painted her cheekbones. The light's dead again. Then she glanced at my scattered dinner, and her mouth tipped into the smallest smile. "You always get the curly fries from Benny's." I blinked. "How do you?" She shrugged like it was obvious. "I see you come home with that bag. Tuesdays. Sometimes Thursdays." The confession came out soft, almost shy. Then she looked up at me and said it again, quieter, as if testing whether it would fit. "Jacob." My name landed between us, heavy and bright. Her thumb made a slow circle on my sleeve, and my body reacted like it recognized safety. I realized she'd learned me the way people learn songs, by paying attention. "Can you stand?" she asked. This time I didn't rush to prove anything. I let her help. I let her arms slide around my back, careful and respectful. And when I finally got to my feet, she didn't step away. She stayed close, eyes searching my face like it was worth reading. That night didn't start with a kiss or fireworks. It started with a name, a touch, and the shocking feeling of being seen. The next morning my knee felt like it belonged to someone older and meaner, but it was the kind of ache that kept replaying the same moment. Her hand on my arm, my name in her mouth, until it turned almost sweet. I tried to treat it like nothing. Shower, coffee, emails, numbers on a screen. Except every time I heard footsteps overhead, my focus snapped upward like a dog hearing its owner. Around noon, my doorbell rang. No one rang my bell. I opened the door, and there she was, Nora, holding a small paper bag and a roll of gauze like she'd raided a pharmacy with purpose. Her hair was down now, soft waves framing her face, and she wore a simple gray t-shirt that made her look less guarded than the night before. "I wasn't sure if you had anything," she said, eyes flicking to my knee and back up. "And you dropped dinner." That felt like a crime. Before I could form a normal response, she stepped inside, and the apartment suddenly seemed too small, too plain, like it had been waiting to be judged. She didn't judge it. She moved like she already knew the space. Like she'd imagined it. I sat on the edge of the couch. She knelt in front of me, close, careful, and peeled back the cheap bandage I'd slapped on. Her fingers were cool. The touch wasn't intimate in the obvious way, no heat, no urgency, but it was direct, unafraid. It made my throat tighten anyway. "You should have cleaned this better," she murmured. "I did," I said, then softened. "I tried." That earned another small smile. She dabbed antiseptic, wrapped gauze, then patted my knee once, like sealing a promise. "Better," she said. The silence, after, felt dangerous. One step away from meaning too much. So I filled it. "How long have you lived upstairs?" 2 months, she answered. Long enough to notice Tuesday fries. I exhaled a laugh. Surprised it came easily. She stood and looked around my bookshelf, reading spines, pausing on a battered old novel. "My dad had that one," she said. The warmth in her voice turned thin at the edges, like something fragile. Then she caught herself and set the book back. "Do you miss him?" I asked before I could stop. Her gaze held mine. Honest but cautious. "Yeah," she said. "And I miss being uncomplicated." The word hung there. Uncomplicated didn't live in her eyes. Neither did peace. A sharp knock rattled the door. Nora's whole body changed. Shoulders up, breath shallow. She moved toward the window and peeked through the blinds. "No," she whispered, barely audible. I stood, instinctive, and looked too. A man was on the porch, mid-30s, expensive jacket, the kind of confidence that took up space. He knocked again, harder. "Nora," he called. "I know you're in there." Her face went pale, then hard. She turned to me, and for the first time I saw fear tucked under a calm. "Please," she said quietly. "Don't open it." Something in my chest locked into place. I didn't ask questions. I just stepped between her and the door, planted my feet, and listened to the next knock like it was a test. The handle jiggled. He tried my door. And that was when I understood. Being seen by her had a price. I kept my voice even. "Wrong unit," I said through the door. A beat. Then his laugh, low. "Sure," he replied. "Tell Nora it's not over." The steps retreated. Nora sagged against the wall behind me. Her hand was still on my wrist, trembling. I covered her fingers with mine, and she didn't pull away. She whispered, "Thank you, Jacob," and I shook inside. After he left, the apartment stayed quiet in a way that pressed on my ears. Nora didn't move right away. Her hand was still wrapped around my wrist, fingers tight like she was anchoring herself. I stayed where I was, breathing slow, letting my body be something solid she could lean on without asking. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "You shouldn't have to deal with that." "It's fine," I said, and meant something deeper than the words. "You're fine." She looked at me, then really looked. The kind of look that checks for cracks. Whatever she found must have been enough, because her grip loosened and her shoulders dropped. She stepped back, embarrassed, smoothing her sweater like she'd woken up in the wrong place. "That was my ex," she said. "He doesn't like unanswered doors." I nodded. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them to understand control when I heard it. The silence returned, but this time it felt shared. She took a breath and gave a small, apologetic smile. "I should probably go," she said. "I didn't mean to bring chaos into your day." "You didn't," I said. "You brought bandages." That made her laugh, the sound light but surprised, like it hadn't expected to show up. She paused at the door, hesitating, then turned back. "Do you want to walk with me later?" she asked. "Just around the block. It helps me sleep." I said yes too fast. She noticed, and her smile softened. That evening, the air was cool, the kind that smells like damp pavement and leaves. We walked side by side, not touching, hands swinging close enough to feel the heat. She told me about her job at a nonprofit, how she'd learned to listen to stories without trying to fix them. I told her about my work, about how numbers felt safe because they never surprised you. "People surprise you," she said. "Only when they see me," I replied before I could stop myself. She slowed, turning toward me under a streetlight. "I see you," she said, simple and steady. Then, almost shy, she slid her fingers into mine. The contact sent a quiet shock through me, not loud, just deep. We walked the rest of the block like that, hands joined, the world moving around us like we were a pocket of stillness. Over the next week, those walks became a habit. So did coffee on my steps, her shoulder leaning into mine, the way she'd bump her knee against mine like punctuation in a sentence. She told me about the warning signs she'd ignored. I told her about the ways I'd made myself small so no one would leave. We never named what was happening. Naming things felt like tempting fate. One night we stopped outside her door. The porch light glowed steady now, fixed. She lingered, fingers tracing the seam of my jacket. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of choosing wrong again." I swallowed. "I'm scared of not choosing at all." She stepped closer. Her hand came up to my chest, resting over my heart like she was listening. Then she kissed me, soft, careful, asking permission even as she took it. I kissed her back, slower, letting the moment be what it was without rushing it into something else. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. "Thank you for being here," she whispered. I understood then that being visible meant being vulnerable. And I didn't step away. The distance didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, wearing reasonable excuses. Missed walks. Short replies. Her footsteps upstairs growing lighter, careful, like she didn't want to wake something fragile. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself not to press. That patience was a kindness. The truth was simpler. I was afraid that if I reached for her and she pulled away, I'd disappear again. A few days passed like that. I went to work, came home, stared at my phone without touching it. One evening I found myself standing on the porch with a mug gone cold, listening to the building breathe. That's when Frank shuffled over from next door, hands in the pockets of his old jacket, the lines on his face soft with familiarity. Frank was in his 60s, retired, always fixing something that didn't need fixing. "You look like a man waiting for permission," he said, not unkindly. I shrugged, just giving someone space. He nodded slowly. "Space is good," he said. "Silence isn't. Silence lets fear do the talking." I didn't answer. He didn't push. He just patted my shoulder and went back inside, leaving his words behind like tools on a bench. That night I heard Nora come home late. Her door closed softly. I stood in my kitchen longer than I meant to, heart loud in my ears, then finally climbed the stairs. I knocked once, then waited. She opened the door, with surprise flickering across her face, quickly hidden. Her eyes looked tired. "I didn't want to crowd you," I said. The words felt thin even to me, but I didn't want to vanish either. She exhaled, stepping aside to let me in. Her apartment smelled like tea and something floral. We stood awkwardly, two people holding different ends of the same question. "I thought I was ready," she said quietly. Then I felt how much it mattered, and I got scared. "I know," I said. "I get scared when things feel real too." Her gaze lifted. "I don't want to hurt you." "You won't," I said. "Not by being honest." She crossed the room and sat beside me on the couch, close but not touching. "He keeps trying to reach me," she admitted. "Not in ways that leave bruises. In ways that make you doubt yourself." I clenched my hands. "You don't have to face that alone." She looked at me, then really looked like she was deciding whether to believe in gravity. Slowly, she leaned in. Her head found my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her, firm and gentle, feeling the tension ease from her body in waves. "I don't need saving," she said. "I know," I replied. "I just want to stand here." She tilted her face up. The kiss we shared was different this time. Deeper, steadier, less cautious. When it ended, she stayed close, her thumb tracing lazy circles on my chest. "I want this," she said. "I just need to choose it without running." I nodded. "So do I." Outside, the porch light glowed constant. Inside, we sat together, breathing in sync, letting the quiet be something we shared instead of something that pulled us apart. The morning felt different before I even opened my eyes. Not louder, not brighter, just steadier, like something had finally settled into place. I lay there for a moment listening, to the pipes, to the distant hum of traffic, to my own breathing, and realized I wasn't bracing myself for the day. I was stepping into it. Nora, and I didn't rush into anything dramatic. There was no speech, no grand promise. We started with breakfast on the porch, 2 mugs warming our hands, her knee brushing mine every time she laughed. She laughed more easily now. I noticed that. The tightness around her eyes had softened, replaced by something lighter, something closer to peace. A week later, she told him it was over. Not in anger, not with tears, just calm, clear words that left no doors unlocked. She came back pale but standing tall, and when she told me, I didn't cheer. I just held her. Long, quiet. The kind of holding that says, you're safe to rest now. Life didn't transform overnight. I still went to work. Still stood in line at the grocery store. Still blended into crowds. But the difference was waiting for me, at home. A light upstairs that stayed on until I arrived. A note on my door sometimes, written in her careful handwriting. Soup's on if you want it. Long day. Come up when you're ready. One evening, we cooked together, hips bumping in the small kitchen, music low. She tasted the sauce, frowned thoughtfully, then kissed my cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from gratitude. From the realization that love didn't have to arrive loudly to be real. The first time she fell asleep on my shoulder, the weight of her felt like trust. Her breathing even, her fingers loosely curled into my shirt. I stayed awake longer than necessary, memorizing the moment, afraid it might disappear if I moved too fast. But it didn't. Morning came. So did the next one. Weeks passed. Then months. People began to say my name more. Not because the world had changed, but because I had. I stood straighter. Looked people in the eye. I stopped shrinking myself out of habit. When Nora slipped her hand into mine in public, I didn't wonder if I deserve it. I just held on. One night we stood on the porch watching the lights come on across the street. She leaned into me and said my name again, soft, familiar, like a truth she no longer questioned. In that moment, I understood something I'd missed for most of my life. I hadn't been waiting for love to save me. I'd been waiting for someone to see me, and to stay once they did. I wasn't lonely. I was invisible. And now I was finally seen.